Good afternoon again, everyone. As the participants are joining us, we're going to get started right away so we can make the most out of this session. We have had so many amazing speakers today. My heart is filled with gratitude. I've been hearing great reports from every session. I've enjoyed the ones that I've attended. I'm so glad to see that our speakers have hung around until the Ask Me Anything session so that our attendees can have another opportunity to ask some questions and interact, engage, and make connections. People, let's make connections. They are here for you to connect with them, find out how you can continue these conversations once this professional development day has ended. I am trying to find my co-host somewhere. He's not in this room as yet. You guys pray for my strength as Lee and I continue to serve as your host today. It's been an interesting day. I'm grateful that we haven't had many technical issues and that the platform is doing well. So we will jump straight into our Ask Me Anything. We have a few of our speakers here. So if anyone is on this session that wants to ask a speaker a question, you can go ahead. I'm going to spotlight all of our speakers so that you can see them. Dawn is here. Um, Katrina is here. The Scrum Mother is here. We have Latina is here. I'm seeing, who else is here? Grace is here. Pete is here. Yannick is also here. And we have our facilitators here as well. So you guys can go ahead and ask questions. I see Dr. Devon is here. The chat is open and also you can come off of mute and ask your questions. You've enjoyed these speakers all day. We've been here from morning, it's now midday. You've enjoyed these sessions with our speakers. I know you probably have some questions that you did not get to ask away, and let's make the most of this 30-minute Ask Me Anything session. I'm trying to learn how to allow the awkward silence to become awkward. I haven't mastered that as yet. As a trainer, I can't do it. I have to fill in the gap. So I know a lot of you speakers are also trainers. How do you apply that rule that let it just get awkward?
Well, somebody has their hand up now.
Tammy.
Hi, Tammy. You can come off of mute.
Hi, good day. Thanks, Andrea. And no, I don't think I've mastered the awkward silence aspect of especially the virtual training as yet. So no, we must fill in. But I have my question is for Grace. Because in the session, Grace, you mentioned your experience with implementing AI in organizations. I wanted to ask if you had an opportunity to implement it in an academic environment, an academic institution. And how did that go? Or if you have any advice, how was the experience with that?
Unfortunately, I've not had the opportunity to do that with an educational institution. Mostly within the oil and gas and banking. I've not had an opportunity to do it with an educational institution. I mean, somebody was pitching, I go do something with a university. Maybe I might begin to think about that. I don't know. But it's really going to be a challenging one, if I may add, right? Because I see the frustration. Even, yeah, you quite reminded me of a session I had recently. And actually, somebody within the educational sector was actually, lashing out at how students were bringing AI generated summaries, essays, and all of that. And, uh, for just a recommendation, right, especially within the class setting, I'd say allow them to use AI as much as they want, but get them in on critical thinking in class. right? You have generated something from AI. Let's have a go at discussing what you've generated. Let's see how it works in real life. Let's see how the knowledge you've gotten from AI, how we could deploy it into solving real life problems, right? I think we'd have to move from theory-based sort of facilitation or even teaching or lecturing into solving real life situations. And I mean, that is one of the best things that can happen to us in this sort of age of AI, right? Move from the overly theoretical kind of approach to teaching to really solving real life scenarios, right? But I think, yeah, there's no way around this. We just have to find a way to, maybe I would also look to places like the East, China, and see how they've actually used AI to custom learning approaches for students, especially for students who have learning disabilities, right?
Yeah.
See how you can custom learning for specific, not even just for learning disabilities, but for generally, like I'm a visual based kind of learner, right? I could see something over and over and it sticks, right? I create patterns in my head. I could just I could read a book and just basically picture the book. And that's how I really passed most of my exams in the university. I could really, from the beginning to the end, have pictures of what I've really read. So I think we could use it to really custom learning for students, right? But also allow them to experiment with it, but mostly engage them in critical thinking, especially how it applies to real life scenarios, right?
Yes.
Yeah, real life scenarios, really important.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Andrew, there's a
Yeah,
question
sorry, go ahead.
from let's see, Miss Cooker, so the Scrum Mother. Can you give us an example of how to use AI as a Scrum Master?
Yeah.
And that's from Patricia.
Yeah, and the name keeps getting, I guess, got entered wrong. It's Katrina, so it's Katrina Coker, so it's missing a K or missing a T. So yeah, actually, so I'll give you two examples of how I use it as a Scrum Master, but then I can give you examples of how other people have told me they use it as a role of Scrum Master. The most significant way that I use, or I would say the most frequent that I use AI as a Scrum Master is using Companion AI for Zoom, AI Companion, I think is what's called for Zoom, Microsoft Copilot to recap summaries, recap action items, to go in and actually very easily find who said what at any given point in a transcript. I've done that either because I want to be like, hey, who do I need to go back to talk to that? Or I might go, this person said this, and I know for a fact that they said this. So I might go seek it for that. The other, what I've done recently is where I had some, common challenges with team responses after team members gave a whole bunch of feedback after a retrospective. And so honestly, just to play around with it, I'm like, hey, taking all names out, I put, hey, this is what my team's feedback is. Hey, ChatGPT, can you put this into trends and themes, and then give me your 5 next steps of what you would do if this were you. So that's something that I've used it, and it actually coincided with what me and the Agile coach were talking about. So I just thought it was interesting, coinciding. So if you don't have another person to pick your brain, I think that was a good way to do that. In addition to when I actually asked other Scrum Masters how they use AI in their role as a Scrum Master, which tools and what they use it for, people said they used it for the same thing I do, meeting notes, or even creating a retrospective agenda. So you can say, hey, please create me a 30-minute retrospective or a 60-minute retrospective with these topics, and tell me also how to structure this, maybe even give me some dialogue and some scripts to use. I knew some product owners who work with the Scrum Masters to run backlog refinement items into better acceptance criteria and to make sure that the requirements are clear. Also, as a Scrum Master, this is the third thing I do. My best practice is that everybody should have a personal Kanban board to track what you're doing. So then you can also transition what you're doing and ask it to convert it to value, just trends. That can be helpful. also to do better evaluations and responses and feedback. And then, of course, creating visuals and presentations. I don't personally do that as much. I'm not quite in my AI journey. I'm not quite ready to do that yet, just because it depends. I'm okay doing like cartoon visuals, but I'm not comfortable with the avatar yet in my journey. And of course, just analyzing team dynamics and stuff. So that's a composition of what I use, as well as what I've asked other Scrum Masters how they use it.
All right,
Is
thank
that
you.
helpful?
Thank you for that response, Katrina. I think Dr. Devon wants to share.
I second everything that Katrina said. The other elements that I've used AI to help, probably one major one was helping with OKRs, and helping to get everybody lined up in the organization, especially when you're trying to think of different things in terms of how you support the ultimate goals of the organization and connecting sprint goals to product goals to ultimately every other goal that the company has. So that's one I would add, but I agree with everything that Katrina said.
Okay, do we have any more questions in the chat? Let's think, could Patricia Culmer, Dr. Morris, the way that you describe how to use AI is excellent. It has equipped me to use it with less fear. Can you please provide a link or information on your company, Atypical? If Patricia, if you go to our exhibitor section of the platform, you'll see that all of the exhibitors' information is available, but Dr. Devon probably could also still provide you something in the chat. Do we have any other questions? Because the comments are coming in and I'm trying to read the chat and it's just flying by. You can't come off of mute and ask your question. And he sent the link in the chat for you, Patricia. Oh, I think Dawn did. Somebody did. Yeah, it's there.
Thank
Jordan has
you. Thank
Jordan
you so
has
much.
no problem. Jordan has an excellent question there. How do you stay informed on the most current AI innovations and updates that can be used for project management? That's probably a good one for the folks here.
Who wants to take it?
I'll take it. There are several different newsletters or influencers that I follow. I will have to kind of circle back on some of those and share them, but something called Mindstream and then Superhuman something. I can share the chats a little bit later, but I subscribe to them, get the daily newsletters. And then if it's not too overwhelmed with notifications and everything else, I'll put them in a folder and then just browse through them. And it kind of keeps you up to date on the wild, wild west of all of the tools and what's changing minute by minute. So that's
All right, thank you for sharing that, Tanya.
Let
Do
me
we have
let me add to that. I go to local meetup groups here in Dallas Fort Worth, Texas. There are several that's happening. There's several incubators that's going on, and I just kind of show up and be a fly on the wall at times, and that helps to at least see where the city is going, and where people are going with it. So that's one thing I do.
I'll also say too that there is a lot, depending on which AI tool you're using, like with ChatGPT, for example, there's a lot of people, whether it's on, well, YouTube in particular, that do weekly or more than weekly updates on the new features related to ChatGPT in particular. So that's a good place to start. There's a lot out there, and you may find like your favorite person that you like to follow. Because they're always providing that type of value. So that's one way too. And then often sometimes using, well, even if you're using some of the tools, sometimes you don't often see the updates because they're kind of embedded. Like one of the features I showed in my session was one that you wouldn't know was there had you not like heard about it from somebody else. Like the branching technique that I talked about in ChatGPT is something that you don't really see it unless you click somewhere and you find it. So yeah, definitely going on to YouTube and finding like your reliable favorite person that's talking about it. And then, because they're going to give you practical tools that then you can then go and play with right afterwards. So that's a good way to stay up to date too.
Okay, so Lee, do you have any input? How do you stay up to date with AI, Lee?
I'll tell you, I only heard half the speakers and I learned so much I got a damn headache.
You heard that Lee said he learned so much from you guys today that you gave him a headache. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Great. So it looks like there was a question as well as about with the evolving trends of Scrum Master roles merging with project manager or release train engineer or release train delivery positions, what key skills or certifications should professionals focus on to stay relevant and future ready as a PM? So one of the things, there's two primary ones that I think everyone and specifically PMs and Scrum Masters should do. And that's all things related to metrics and reporting and specifically speaking in numbers and money as much as you can. Just learning more about, revenue and how our roles are impacted by that and how the value we are bringing can translate to revenue as well. I was in a training recently, and the presenter said something along the lines of like, "Hey, if we're on a meeting, and we have salaries, and the meeting's not going well, how much did this meeting just cost us? How much did it cost to not get what we were buying?" And that's often not project managers. I will say money and budget is often under your realms naturally. I actually like it not being under the Scrum Master hat. However, I still think that from a Scrum Master role, it's still something we should all be attentive to making sure that we're delivering value. So anything to do with metrics and reporting, specifically around certifications, if there's a backlog management tool that your company is specifically using, dive into what offerings they're providing to learn more about the tool, dashboards, reporting methods that already exist. And it varies depending on whatever it is. If you don't have a backlog management tool, that would probably be one of the first things I would invest in, because there's a lot of things that we can do manually. But if I'm a big advocate for use what you already have if you have it. From a qualitative standpoint, facilitation, because a lot of people are good with one or the other. Good with the operations, data and reporting, not necessarily the soft skills, or really good at the soft skills, which is more where many agilists fall, really good with the soft skills, but not as much as Dr. Morris mentioned, the OKRs and the numbers, and being able to get good at those. So facilitation, there's an organization called the International Association of Facilitators, or another one, Toastmasters International, which I've been a member of, that can help get comfortable doing two things: being able to talk to anyone and at any time and any level, no matter who's in the room. That's actually a feedback I just got at my current client. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if it was a positive thing or a negative thing, but they're like, she will speak up no matter who's in the room. And that's not, you got to know when to speak up and when not to speak up. But what I don't want people in my role or project managers to not be able to do those things, like to be scared. Like if you're not doing it due to it being deferential and it's intentional strategy, that's one thing. But if you're not doing it because you don't feel comfortable, that would be another thing. So either of those organizations will help you get comfortable reading the room, navigating, but also being able to get comfortable speaking. Because I'll tell you specifically, as a Scrum Master, I have to reach out to people in any organization at any given time. I don't know who they are, what role they are, in order to solve a problem that a teammate might be having and how I can help them be more effective. And I would say both of those skill sets, public speaking and facilitation, diving into those would be helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do we have any more comments in the chat?
There's another question there. Christy had a question. Besides ChatGPT, what are other AI programs that are good to use?
I could go on that. There are quite a number of them. I think I've gone around almost all of the models. But I find Claude being very good with statistics, right? Anything analytical. Don't agree. Yeah, Claude, very good with me doing statistical analysis. But then once it does the statistical analysis, you then have to take the result of the statistics back to ChatGPT because ChatGPT is good at doing text-based analysis, right? But I've also come to realize that Gemini is such a good tool as well. Such a good tool. I mean, I had to subscribe to create my own AI agents on Gemini as well. And then, onboard all of my data sets to just help me do so much of analysis and create documents as much as I can. So Gemini is quite, for me, for my region, I don't know how it is for other regions, but it's cheaper for me to subscribe to Gemini than subscribing to ChatGPT or to Claude. Yeah, but I still rely on Claude for my analysis, right? But still use Gemini because the integration, of course, is quite easy, right? It integrates with almost everything around my workspace, my data, my email, every other thing. Yeah. So if I would have to do integration with ChatGPT, it will mean, going to the back end and doing all of that, but it's much more easier with Gemini. So Gemini is made by Google. You can try that and use Claude whenever you think you would have to do any sort of statistical analysis. Yeah.
I just want to put in, I use Calendly for scheduling, and it introduced recently a note taker that just comes into your meetings. And what I love about it is it actually records the video, which I was surprised. And it has a recap, the transcript, and in the AI, you
I
can,
guess it's as good as mine.
in the AI, can someone mute? In the note taker, you can actually ask it questions about the content of your meeting. And it also had me, I was like, let me see if it can write a thank you letter. And it did. Like it wrote thanks for coming to this meeting, blah, blah, blah. So these AI that we have, the AI is being placed everywhere. And I know for me, myself, it seems overwhelming sometimes. It's like, it's here again, it's there too. Like, because we had those, the big ones, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, but in all these little places, it's there. And for me, that was like an expansive way to think like, oh, I don't have to take these notes from the Calendly summary, place it in ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a thank you letter. I could do it right there. Now, Calendly didn't tell me that I could do that. I just was like, let me see if it can. And I think someone talked about experimentation, I think in the panel. I think it was Alex, how important it is to experiment and ask questions. And it's okay if it fails, because it could have come back and told me I can't do that, But when it did, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to add on to what everyone is saying, two things. I'll mention Notebook LM, which as of right now is of no cost. And when you're talking about, Grace was talking about research, it does handle a lot of data at one time and will allow you to do that research and look at those trends and differences and things of that nature. So Notebook LM is one. And then I'll also say this, you are going to find that in this whole, I'm going to use a word that I don't use that I mentioned in this vast tapestry of of tools, that your tech stack may get a little crazy. So I'll say this: watch your, what it is you're using. Use it for a period of time before you decide I'm not going to use it anymore, and then add on only if it's going to benefit what you're doing. Not add on for the sake of, oh, it's this new shiny thing, right? Because that can get you into trouble with subscriptions and just, 2 years later, you're like, what is that subscription for? And I don't even use. Many times I've had to go through and do a little bit of a deep dive into what I was subscribing to that I no longer use, that no longer served me. So just be mindful of that as well. Because there's, like Dawn said, there's a lot out there, and it's just really a matter of what is embedded in what you currently use. Start there and then expand your way out from that point.
Let me add one thing as we close this one out. The CEO of NVIDIA said that he uses 4 models every single day to create alignment around every single question that he asks. So if the CEO of a major company is doing that, what should you be doing?
Yes. Dawn, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I have a question for Yannick.
Okay.
Hey, Yannick, thank you for attending all the way from Australia. Yannick, you mentioned in the panel this idea of creating our own work. And I was just like, whoa, right? Um, can you share with us like maybe one tip or one piece of advice for how we can think about what we have in our in our view and how to create our own work or have like I don't know, a curiosity. Because I'm like, how do I take everything I'm doing, right? Or if you're doing for someone else or something, and then create your own work the way you mentioned that. I hope that question is clear.
Yes, yes, thank you, Dawn, for the question. So yes, so that's a very good question. What I've seen in a lot of large organizations that I work with is that we spend a huge amount of money deploying a new system with a lot of processes, but there's no process to go and review the process until things goes really wrong. This is when we will do a retro. So now what happened between the time that we've initially implemented the process and something goes wrong, there's been a lot of inefficiencies. So what I've started to do is an advice that I'd give everyone to look at retrospective in the way we work every day. So put regular retro in your work every fortnight or every month with your team. So to encourage innovation, so to encourage thinking out of the box. So that will highlight and issues around inefficiencies will surface. So this will provide opportunity for your team members. Say, how about we do something differently? How about we try this new AI tool that is out there and that would save us time. So, and Alex mentioned experimentation. So this is how when we bring all these ideas, so we encourage people to start to think, to bring new ideas. There's also PMI talked about the future of organization will be the learning organization. So now how do we become a learning organization is to first encourage learning, have values and culture that will attract and retain people who want to learn and try new things. So if an organization stays in the way that it's been shaped until something goes wrong, to start to do a post-implementation review or why things go wrong. So our competitors will surpass us. So this is where, as a project manager, we really need to look, are there better ways? Always ask the question, how can we do things better? And there's a lot of tools. What is out there? So encourage team members to come with new tools, with new research that they've done, and try to embed that into the way that we work. And then also be sure that we know how we work. How do we communicate? What tool do we use? So that's very clear. Oh, we can adjust here. We can adjust this particular ways of working in that area. So hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
You're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
That's actually a great segue to the next question that I was going to answer. How do you encourage this is from Denise, I think is how you pronounce it. How do you encourage older colleagues who are set in their ways to engage in or use AI platforms to improve performance? I think it's a great question. This actually came up on when I gave my presentation last week, just in regards of how do you get anybody to accept a new tool, right? And my response to that is first is one, you got to also know there's different in marketing, there's a curve. There's those people that want to be the first and they're lined up. They've already paid for their iPhone before the iPhone ever comes out. They want to be the ones to teach everybody else. Then there are people all the way at the other end of the spectrum that are laggards. It's nothing other than other people, they're just going to be the last ones to use the prop. Honestly, I'm one of those people. Like, I'm not going to be first. I'm going to see how it does. I'm going to learn. I'm going to observe. So it's one, figuring out, appealing to the why. What's behind it, right? Is it just a matter of it's not important to me? Is it fear? Is it just needing to just, or as you said, set in their ways? Because that's not necessarily fear-based. That's not necessarily I want to see how it goes. That's like what I'm doing works. And the first thing I would acknowledge is sometimes it actually does work. Sometimes the old ways of working do actually work. And how often do we have in the South, we say they just don't make them like they used to, right? There are products that, like, there's a plastic salt shaker that my parents have had for 20 plus years, and people will just comment like, oh, I love that salt shaker, right? It's like there's just some things that as we introduce more technology, sometimes they tend to actually break more. So we just have to acknowledge all around, but for my older colleagues, just like I would with anyone, is seeing where they're coming from, and then also looking back, hey, what are you currently using that maybe was never in existence before, right? So what else have you learned to do as a human that has made your life better? What could you not imagine your life without? And I feel like that's coming from that angle of digging into finding out more information rather than forcing things upon people, is the best way to address it. And then sometimes it's a matter of, hey, how can I help you? How can I train you? Is there a question I can answer for you? And then also, I'm going to go back to data and reporting. Is the new ways of working actually faster and actually more efficient? Because sometimes, just like we know in software, that sometimes manual work is actually faster and more efficient than automating things. Sometimes, not all the times. So that's actually how I would address it.
Well, thank you for that. We are at time. I know the session was like rapid fire, half an hour went very quickly. Dr. Devon, I saw you wanted to just get a word in. I could give you a final 60 seconds.
Oh, that's all I need. So with being raised by a group of elders, I would say patience is the thing that I use with older folks. And then going back to Dawn's question, I would say to you that frustration is the king of innovation, and innovation is the keys to your freedom. That's all. Peace.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, panelists, for hanging around. We're going to transition into our power networking session. We are almost at the end of our professional development day. I know you can't believe it. I can't believe it either. But we have a few more sessions to go. Hang around. We have some awesome prizes to give away when we have our prize giving session. I know you don't want to miss out on that. Unfortunately, the speakers are not entitled to get prizes. Oh, I'm sorry, but we're going to give it to our attendees. We appreciate you for being here, but we're going to give it to our attendees. So hang around for the rest of the day. We have a few more sessions to go, and let's transition into our power networking where we get to know you a little bit better. See you on the other side.